Shalom, shalom. This video is about the Gospel of John chapter 19 verses 28 to 30. About John's acceptance of Yeshua's request. Remember, Yeshua requested him to take care of his mother Miriam. And after this we read in the text, when Yeshua knew that all things were now completed to fulfill the scripture, he said, I am thirsty. A jar full of sour wine was sitting there, so they put a sponge soaked with the sour wine on a hyssop branch and brought it to his mouth. When Yeshua tasted the sour wine, he said, it is finished, and he bowed his head and gave up his spirit. Yeshua's first prayer in this short 2 verses is that I am thirsty. It stands to reason that his body was dehydrated and therefore he was thirsty. It was the physical pashat thirst. Yeshua wanted a drink of water. It's written that anyone who would give him a drink of water will surely receive the reward in heaven. That is written in Matthew 10 verse 42. But no one gave him water. Sour wine, which may have been mixed with gall to make it bitter, maybe as a remedy to dull the pain of crucifixion, was available. This was presented to Yeshua in the most foul way, which I will explain below. The sour wine was firstly a satanic attack on Yeshua's promise at the Last Supper, the previous evening, earlier on the same biblical day, not to partake in wine again until he drinks new wine with his disciples in his Father's house. In the Seder of the Seder meal, there's 4 glasses of wine to drink. It's the 4th wine, the 4th cup, the cup of salvation that he didn't drink. He said he will not drink wine again until he drinks new wine with his disciples in his Father's house. That's the cup of salvation. So if he drank this, his broken promise will make all his other promises also suspect. He turned it down in order to keep his word, his promise. In refuting this last temptation to have the sour wine, Yeshua said that it was finished. The it will be the topic of the next video that I make. The presentation of sour wine on a sponge begs the question where a sponge would come from. Remember, this is outside of Jerusalem. Why was there a sponge available so far away from the Great Sea? Well, the reason is that Roman soldiers were issued sponges to wipe their bums off with after they had bowel movements. These sponges were washable, reusable toilet paper issued to Roman soldiers as part of their military kit. That is why there was a sponge available and where the sponge came from. Using the sponge to offer wine to Yeshua was adding insult to injury in the most foul way. Hyssop branches are loaded with spiritual meaning. Before the first Passover in Egypt, on the night of the firstborns, which on the calendar was the same night as the Last Supper, the blood of the Passover lamb were applied to the doorpost with hyssop branches, like the wine applied to Yeshua here. Hyssop was also added to the pyre of the red heifer to produce the ashes that cleans people from contact with the dead. However, why hyssop specifically, that remains a chok, something that escapes our understanding. Yeshua's deeper thirst was for justice and righteousness, as we read from Matthew 5 verse 6. But this was denied to him as well. Remember, Pilate found him not guilty and the charges against him was vague. Roman law required a specific charge. There was no charge. And regarding the allegations made by the house of Annas, there was no Torah commandment that Yeshua was in transgression of either. So justice was denied to him and righteousness was not applied to him. So when Yeshua returns, he will quench his thirst when he fulfills Yom Kippur in judgment and in righteousness. And then his thirst will be quenched. And with that, I bid you Shalom Shalom.